just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other.
All right, Coach. Welcome. Let's seek some truth. What must we seek today? What comes out?
Oh man, we got to reach deep into our bag of tricks today. What else is in there? What else haven't we talked about? Or what can we get a different perspective on? What's in there? I'm not sure. I don't know today.
How many different perspectives are there in a certain area? Like, at what point do we think we're done? Is there a certain place where you can close a loop on a situation, a prospect, a principle or a concept, and say, like, I know there is everything there is to know about that? Is there ever a safe time to do that?
I don't think so. I'm constantly reminded just through my life experiences of different perspectives that I'm getting of what I already thought to be true or normal or perfect or the way things are. The pandemic was maybe the most jarring example of something that, we just take for granted, or something that we don't even think is a possibility that boom hits us. And I think there's a million little things like that, like a million smaller versions of a pandemic that we experience every single day.
Yeah. And I got something to kind of distill this down to how I'm thinking about it. And in itself was an example of a new perspective of the same thing. Because I've heard this quote or comment before, or this thought before, but I heard it yesterday on a podcast. And it's the first time I've gone, oh, yeah, now I get that. Strong beliefs loosely held. What does that mean to you?
It means you're convicted in what you believe in, but you're also open enough to new perspectives or new insights on how you might make that stronger or more whole or more complete as you experience more things in life.
Yeah, it's the odd duality, dynamic versions or things in our life, right? It's like you've got to be all in, but be willing to know that you might be wrong. Like it's on the outset, it's a challenge to think about, because you're like, hey, you've got to be absolutely all in no matter what in order to really get results. You've got to be convicted of what you're believing in, so you're all the way in on your actions. Probably. It's kind of saying that, right? But it makes sense to me as well. At the same time, you've got to be willing to go, if this is it. I think that it's back to decision making. It's giving it parameters, right? What's the only way that we can get to perfection is to create parameters and say, within these parameters, this is what I define as perfection. Perfection by itself doesn't exist, because you can never get there, because it continuously grows. That's why it's a low standard. But you can create perfection in parameters, in a square. Within this box of the things I'm talking about, this, and this, if you do that, equals perfection. But it stops. And so you've got to be strongly convicted to go, that is the thing, and I want to be all in it. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to get the result, because your action will be substandard for what it deserves in order to get to the result. But you've also got to be willing to go break those parameters and say that there could be something else. It's not just about what's in there. And that's the duality with it.
We've had some of these conversations with clients in recent days about defining their goals for 2023. It's just an interesting place to be in. It's the same concept here. Like we make everything up. I think that's kind of what you're saying. We make up the definition. It's almost like, well, what's the point of making it up anyway? Well, the point is we can't pursue anything until we make it up. But we also know, so if we set a goal for 2023, for example, we're all in on that, right? But you can't be all in on it until you set up what it is. And whenever you set up something that you really want, it doesn't feel quite like it's been captured the way that you might have it in your mind. It's kind of like defining an emotion. Like if you define love, you could maybe give me 10 different things to show that you practice love, or that you show it, or that you're conscious of it. But it never really feels like you're defining it the whole way that it should be defined. And I think of a goal like that as well. Like, sure, I want that thing, but that's not everything that I want. There feels like there's something missing in that, and you are distilling it down for me. I think it's the fact that you're making it up. You're deciding what it is maybe a nicer way to say that, which
Yeah.
is empowering. It's a great place to be in because you have the power to do that. But it's also like, well, what's the risk of not completely defining what actually it is that I want, and just having it be like a version of it, or a part of that bigger representation.
There's some trust here as well, right? Because in a world where you can do anything, limitless possibilities, pretty much capabilities, pick a period of your life, pick a year of your life and say, this year, I'm going to do this. This is the difference I'm going to make. This is the person I'm going to become. This is the outcomes I'm going to get to. And that should be exciting and scary. That's why it needs to be the and. It needs to be, what if I get to the end of this and it's not the thing that I wanted? What if? And you've got to be willing to still play all in, knowing that that's true,
Mm.
because that's where the real juice comes from. Now, the reality is, because it's tested, that if you go and do that, then by the time you get to the end, the thing that you wanted to get to, it doesn't exist in the same way anymore, because you're different. Your perspective on that thing isn't the same anymore anyway. So there's, in essence, you can never get there.
Hmm.
But don't let that stop you trying, because you won't ever get there if you don't try. And even if you do try, you won't get there. But the opposite doesn't bear thinking about, right? With the opposite, it's just going, I just do what comes to me. I just react and get angry and feel bad about the world.
Mm.
But you got to say, within that construct, 2023, I'm going to do this, and this is part of my journey. It's part of the whole. I can't judge it in the totality because I've got no idea what else there is going to be, and I can't see what's possible from that end of 2023 goal because I'm not there yet. How can you possibly do it? So if you're trying to judge it in the context of your life, but with the scale of the year and the contrast of other things around you, then it's going to throw your mind through a loop because you won't be able to figure that out. But you've got to trust. There's at some point you've got to give over to the trust of like it will be worth it.
And so the takeaway is that it has to be something. Is that what we're saying? Like the alternative of not deciding is even worse than that.
Yeah, that's the. It's a hell of a thing to decide what it is you want to go after it, and you might not get it, and even if you do, it might not be right, and it's going to be lots of trials and tribulations of the hero's journey all the way through. It's going to be terrible. But the opposite, it doesn't even bear thinking about in terms of how bad that is. Because
Yeah.
it's like you damned. It's honest. You're damned if you do. It's hell if you don't. Right? Like you've got to go for it, because if you don't, then you'll always be just going. You amount to nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing there. There's no
Mm.
version of you to do anything with. There's no bedrock. There's nothing to stand on.
What insight might you give to somebody who wants to ensure that whatever they come up with is enough of a thing to want to pursue? Like how will somebody know that thing? Is there an internal search that is required of them to think about this and figure it out first? Should it be some sort of external like contrast, like what other people do in my position? Like how might somebody actually capture something that is enough of a game for them to play?
Yeah. Stop. Don't search for absolute certainty, as in I don't even think about this as a decision. Right? Because remember, when you're making decisions aren't based on absolute certainty. It's a value proposition trade-off. And so if you're going for, I need to know it's the right thing. I'll know when I know. What is it? I don't know, but I'll know when I get there. Like, it's not right yet. I don't know. The reason why people go through that ridiculousness cycle is because they're looking for something that they can't find, which is the 100% absolute certainty that it's the right thing. That doesn't exist. That's not the game. You're playing the wrong game. Stop playing that game. Play a game of value proposition with all the things that you know at the moment, based on the opportunities that are out there and the things that you know and the things that excite you, the things that scare you. Does this thing have the most potential upside? Does it excite you and scare you the most? Are the trade-offs you're going to make to get there trade-offs you're willing to make?
So knowing that there's sacrifices coming, what's worth the sacrifices to even pursue in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. What might I get here? What might happen? Who might I become?
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe the one thing I might add to that is the element of creation. I think we're driven to be creators and to create something. So, a money or a revenue goal might be a version of that, but I challenge people to think about what they're creating in the meantime, how they're producing something that can help themselves, help other people, but thinking about the element of creating something along the way.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that like a different in first and second and third order consequences or outcomes. What do I get? Who do I become? What groundwork do I lay for things further down the line? What can you create? That I think about when you share that, coach. I often tell that story about when I started coaching. Was before that, as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. People would say you got to find your purpose. You got to find the thing that you are. It's like, it doesn't do anything for me. But what was much more helpful was, to your point, go create the thing that you want. Much more helpful. Because if it's find your purpose, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. If I'm looking for a needle in a haystack, at least I know what I'm looking for. Find your purpose is like, well, what am I even looking for? Where do I even look? It feels like a pursuit that you shouldn't even start. But creating something, that's different.
That's something I want to think more about after today's conversation. Always gets me thinking. That's the purpose of this. So thank you, Coach. Any final thoughts? How can you land the plane here? Bring us home.
Super helpful for me to review some of this stuff. I just want the urgency, and it stirs things up inside for me. So it's always helpful to come back to it and go like, are you really moving to the things you really want to be moving? Because everything's made up, like you said, Coach. That was helpful for me as well. Like, just remember that everything we do is made up. Are we making up? What am I making up right now that doesn't serve me very well? That's it for me today, right? So if I'm in my office right now looking around going, what am I searching for? Just decide that this is what I'm searching for. Why? Because I'm looking at it. And so now I can do something with it. I can move on. Right? I'll make up stuff that's useful.
Thanks, Coach. I'm going to think about that more. Appreciate it. Good engagement. We'll have another good conversation next week.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.